also like that build against what Deer has done, like four games in a row, right? The Stargate into Oracle, into Void Ray or Phoenix. Generally, the Void Ray is not going to get out in time if you are hitting that quick of a timing. So maybe that's another reason why he's like, okay, we got a big ramp on Whirlwind. I can abuse this, especially if he goes Stargate. So perfect build choice. He takes the win. Can he take the day, though? We're going to be jumping into Overgrowth for Game 6 to find out. Here we go. Game number 6 up in the top right. This is Deer. Needs 2 wins in a row to come back in this one.
Down to the bottom left in purple. On match point, it is Dark. 1 win away from victory here in this best of 7 to move on to face off against Classic next week. And the entire prophecy of Deer, the story that has been followed for so long since his GSL championship in 2013, is just his failure to show up when it matters most. Dropping out of 3 semifinals of the GSL. Most of them he took a lead in the first map and then got smashed in the remaining few, depending on how long the series was, 2 or 3 additional maps. And now he finds himself up 2 games. As soon as it goes to his opponent's maps, as soon as it goes down Dark's path, the maps he wanted to play on, and Deer's shown his hand for his builds in the first few games, everything starts to go Dark's way. When the cheers started at the beginning of today, we're a little bit weak from the fans. Everyone was still getting into this series. The cheers for this match, not one person in the crowd was cheering for Deer. It was everyone on Dark's side. In fact, a few people moved into the Dark side of the crowd from Deer's side before the game started. Everyone is cheering against him, and he only has 1 life left. To come back from here, to win these last 2 games as Deer, the player who's so emotional, I feel like would be such a miraculous story. It feels like every Deer fan is holding the breath right now, waiting to see what is going to be the build. What will he attempt to do? On this 2-player map, will he try to go 2 Oracles again, harass the early game, try to get those Queen pickoffs? Will he go back to what worked so well against Dark at the beginning of this series? It's the big question. Because Dark's already shown he can figure out how, or he has figured out how to deal with it in Game 3.
Yeah, I think it's... I do like the idea of going back into the Stargate build. That was what Deer looked most comfortable with. I would love to just see him do the same thing, right? Just do the 2 Stargates, try to hit the timing, try to get some good damage done to the economy of Dark. He had a good time against the triple Stargate where he was able to scout the 3 Oracles where he's like, okay, you're going into air. I have a lot of scouting of this very early on, but if Deer can hit the same timing that he did in games number 1 and 2, I think he definitely has a good shot, especially on a map like Overgrowth. This can hit the 3rd base of Dark extremely fast.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room to work with between the bases, though. If you have a solid defense, if you're Dark with your Queens against the Oracle of the Void Ray, that kind of attack, then getting to the main base through the natural, you have to basically fly through risky airspace the entire time. And although I do really agree about hitting the 3rd base specifically, that's where he's going to have to hit. Getting to the natural, getting to the main base, I think is going to be very difficult if he decides to commit to that. This is also a late 3rd from Dark based on what we've seen so far. He's playing it very safe. Deer scouts this.
4 Queens to start.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, okay, if you're going to go Stargate, you're going to get pretty screwed because the creep is going to be connected this time. He is going to,
doesn't scout the lair.
He doesn't have the lair. That's a pretty huge scout, actually. Does see that there's still no 3rd base, which is definitely pretty wacky. We do have a Roach Warren on the way with this lair.
Does he see it? He does see it. The vision reduction on that patch for the Adept makes moves like this so much more difficult to pull off. Roach Warren is pretty telling that Dark wants to be aggressive in this game as he was in the previous one. Not as quick of a timing, not as all-in, but definitely a strong one. Void Ray already shown. He shows the Robo, which is an odd adaptation if he's going to commit to it, but intentionally does let that Overlord see it.
Yeah, I don't think he got the scout on that Roach Warren. No, he doesn't have any idea So is going to have the correct tech, at least, for Dark, who is just getting a fast roach speed on 2 bases on Overgrowth. So definitely a huge change up from the way he's been playing and transitioning into mid and late game and other games here. We'll have a very easy time dealing with the depths in the early game, that's for sure.
Definitely true. Interesting that Deer is just, he's playing it ultra safe. He's not really committing to any more Stargate units. He's starting Immortals. He's not making a third base. He's read this lair very well. He's also, remember, we saw the one thing he has seen, despite not seeing the Roach Warden, consistently he has seen there's no third base. So he's looking at this like, okay, this is a little bit weird. I should probably be safe here. The Robo Bay is a totally unusual thing we haven't seen so far. And you have to imagine that the follow-up transition will be into Colossi after he defends those first initial Roaches. Could be one Disruptor that comes out too that's very strong against Roach pushes because they can't micro very well off creep.
Yeah, that's definitely an option for him. Colossi would be good against that Ling Hydra Bane composition that Dark has been running quite often. So if he does want to go into that instead of the Storm, it's an interesting choice. I think it will definitely catch Dark off guard. Very curious to see what the tech choice will be as Deer does get the scout of the third base finally coming down.
So as soon as that Immortal finishes, we'll get the idea. Swarm Hosts, though, are going to be the tech choice of Dark here. Throwing a curveball after the lair was scouted by that Shade. We'll actually grab an Adept here. Won't be able to get any more. Third base comes up. He's not actually done anything with this Robotics Bay just yet. Just holding right now.
Just made it for a transition later, I suppose. But this is going to be a pretty strong push right now with a couple of Sentries, a couple of Immortals. I don't know if Swarm Host is really the answer, to be honest. I haven't seen this all too much. I suppose when you have 9 Swarm Hosts, and even making more than that now. Oh, he's going to scout it.
That's so important because I think Swarm Hosts are really incredibly strong against Disruptors just by their nature. You're not going to try to be using your Disruptor shots on Locust. It is going to cause him to be more aggressive here across the map. But when it comes to defending his third base, I think Colossi are going to be much more useful against these free units. He begs to differ, though. He will create the second Disruptor here as the third base is finally finishing up. Void Ray controlling this zone right here, looking for those Swarm Hosts. He will not see where they're actually headed, towards the 9 o'clock position over here, around the side. So he's hunting the Swarm Hosts. Unfortunately for Deer, unlucky, the only place he doesn't check is exactly where the Swarm Hosts are headed, towards the third base. Doesn't have vision of the left side. And that's exactly where Dark has chosen to attack.
He only has one Observer, too, so, I mean, he doesn't have coverage right now. And here we go.
He's going to see him now. Needs to pull these probes out. Swarm Hosts is going to trigger these Locusts.
Double overcharge.
Go for the pylons.
Yeah, that's going to be 3 overcharges. Nice little micro move over here, trying to get as much damage as possible. But at the end of the day, only losing 1 pylon and some Mothership Core energy is not so bad.
Oh, the Void Ray catches some of these Swarm Hosts too. He's going to have them tracked down now. He missed the first move out. Remember, Dark is also very low on workers, as it was shown earlier and scouted by the Hallucination Phoenix. He's barely mining from his third base. He's only got a few drones there, mostly only mining gas right now there. And all Deer needs to do now is track these Swarm Hosts and get into position to take a fight while Locusts are on cooldown. Yeah. He does have the blink coming up. Oh!
Okay, coming on in, not able to one-shot these, but he's got 20 Swarm Hosts right now, so Locusts are going to be a gigantic problem. Trying to kite them as best as he can, but I think he just needs to run right now.
Yeah, he lost both of his Disruptors. He has a third one. Doesn't have the Nova fired yet. With the Roaches here, he's a little bit panicked. I think this is going to be a dead Disruptor, though. Second one is coming out, but it's just, again, very useless against these free Locusts. Can't actually really do anything with the Purification. Okay, he gets the Locust, but what about the next wave? What about the next attack? He's lost position here.
And the way that Dark is using these Locusts is they're not all firing the Locusts at the same time. We had a bunch of these Swarm Hosts on the left. They used their cooldown, and some in the middle using them. You can see that half of the Swarm Hosts are going to have their Locusts available. So if Deer was trying to get in between the rotations, Dark has effectively stopped that from being possible with this Swarm Host composition and the way that he's using them.
Trying to get some Swarm Hosts here. Does get 2 for 1 Stalker. Will he be able to save the rest of his Stalkers very impressively? Yes, he does. Love this Dark Shrine. He's scouted several times at third base, doesn't have detection. And the Locusts and the Swarm Hosts are slow units. They are free units, and they do fight directly very well. Very difficult to deal with in a straight confrontation, but he's actually just slowing down those said confrontations. Well, can't hit those flying ones, sadly.
Stalker's not being micro here, and he's going to lose a bunch of them, and uh-oh, there's a traffic jam here at the front door, as it looks like that force field is going to buy Deer some time, but
with the exception of that Stalker miss micro over there, his crisis management has really been incredible. Sure, he lost 2 disruptors in the first fight he tried to take, but he's been tracking these Swarmos over and over and over again. We'll grab one here with this Nova. Second Nova clears up most of the Locust. His force field was good, but now he's trying to actually get into position to siege up and finish the game. How good will Deer's crisis management be here?
The 2 disruptors go down before the fight even starts. That is gigantic, and you were talking about the disruptors. The shots need to be on points, but if they're not alive, they can't even come out here. And the Roaches are going to take this fight.
Good micro from Deer, and he's trying to pick off these Swarmos from behind with these Stalkers. Another Nova is fired.
Oh.
Good split. But Deer survives yet again. This comp is losing value over time for Dark. The 4th base is up. He needs to transfer probes over there. As Dark Shrine now complete, we are going to see DTs sending across the map to try to harass and also can really shut this down when there are no Overseers with the composition. Very difficult to deal with. These Locusts are also getting upgraded to +3 attack right now. Deer only now getting his +2 completed. And it's going to be harassment is the name of the game here.
He did just make 2 Overseers. Doesn't look like they're with the army, though. But no DTs here even to help deal with the attack. Still very scary. The DTs are going over to Dark Space, but nothing in the front. That is a huge swarm of Locusts making their way out onto the map.
1 DT gets in here, but this is already so much damage done. So many of those expensive disruptors went down. Not enough of the Swarmos were killed. He still has 22 of them left. Dark, remember, is doing this on 48 drones, 3 bases.
Oh, the Nexus.
Nexus is gone. DT's not going to save it. He will have to remake that immediately. That 4th base is mining, though. I don't know if Dark knows about it. He has the gold base, but it's not mining. He's down 13 workers here. And it looks like for the time being, this Swarmos attack has ended. And if Dark is under the wrong assumption that there is no 4th base to the top left, he could end up finding himself very far behind, misunderstanding the economy.
This is such an interesting way to play ZVP. It seems like Dark has been brainstorming in preparation for all of these Protosses and SSL. Very low economy.
Oh, this is so huge, though. He's going to get several of these Swarmos. Still, there has to be a defense over here at the 3rd base.
Looks like he should be able to do this relatively well. And 1 disruptor is going to go down, unfortunately, for Deer.
He sees the 4th. He knows about it. He's hitting it with the Roaches.
He can get that.
This is such a huge moment. Deer needs to deal with this.
Oh, he's just going for the probes. He's going to kill all of the probes and maybe even also the Nexus.
Looks like it. Deer just couldn't get over there fast enough. Now he can trap and kill these Roaches, but the Swarmos can hit another angle. He's essentially playing tennis with Deer's multitasking here. Stalkers will eventually kite this back and take it out. Looks like a DT is hitting the 4th base of Dark, which again is still not mining. In fact, it's more than just that base. Drones are off the line.
He's not losing too many, though, which is pretty fortunate. He has crippled the economy of Deer, who you can see the mining down at the bottom. He's got a bit more than Dark right now, but he's so far behind on his supply. Dark has kept all of these Swarm hosts alive for so long in this game, getting incredible value. Feels
like we're watching a Heart of the Swarm game with Disruptors. Yeah. That's what feels like we're watching right now. This next wave of Locusts could even start to hit the infrastructure in the main base.
Just going for it.
Oh, the Disruptor shot is really good. Everyone is very low. Second one takes out several of those Swarm hosts, but will he be able to defend against the Swarm of the Locusts? It's going to be the question here. He's got Roaches on the ground. Disruptor's under fire here. Stalker's trying to counterattack, but the Swarmos, the Locusts are timing out. The Nexus will survive. Well, not to the Roaches.
Yeah, the Roaches are going to be able to clean this up. Stalkers over here are being pushed away by the Roaches. And only now, I mean, Deer, he has his natural back, but he's lost 2 of his other bases. Doesn't really have much of a standing army.
What a great series this has turned out to be, but it feels like it's coming to a close now. Deer just can't find anything on the map anymore, and even though Dark had such a piss-poor economy for the entirety of the mid-game here, he has his 4th base online. It's a gold base, and it doesn't matter how cheap you are in terms of your drone count, in terms of your mining, when you have free units that you're consistently sending across the map. This may be the last fight of the game, as Deer just has very little to nothing left.
And come the Locusts, it's not that crazy swarm we saw earlier on, but it may just be enough, as there's 1 disruptor.
That's it, GG, Dark will advance to base Classic in round 2 of the playoffs. creativity coming out of this series from both players, but it is Dark that shows the extra level of depth when it matters most.
He deserves this series win for sure. Going down 0-2, staying so calm under the pressure. You were talking about his reverse sweeps, how many he's had in his career. Wasn't a true reverse sweep, but he was one game away from that. And man, he took 4 games in a row straight to Deer. First with defense against Deer's style, forcing him into a new style, and then bringing in 2 games of his own new style to show us tonight here in ZVP. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I feel like the Disruptor tech, he was kind of stuck with going with it after a while there, but the Disruptor Purification Novas couldn't one-shot the Swarm host, and once that was the case, and he couldn't actually kill them, then the Stalkers, they didn't know which ones were damaged necessarily when they were trying to pick off, or he was microing other things. Sure, you could see the hit point bars, but the ones that were damaged were often in the middle, so he just never got the consistent picks there. If he could hit one Nova into a second Nova into a third Nova every time, it would have been great, but against those Locusts swarming in each and every time, you can't have your Disruptors far enough forward to actually get those shots off. Dark was always in proper position with those Swarm hosts. Another camera walker there. Always in proper position with those Swarm hosts. The scariest moment for Dark fans was when he didn't know about the 4th base, but the second he found it, he knew Deer didn't have a mobile army, and he shut it down.
Yeah, he was on 2 bases for quite a while, and then he was only on 3 bases for quite a while, Dark, and he had a very low economy, just very aggressive style in ZVP with the Swarm host. Was very, very cool. Would love to see that in the future. Maybe that's an only overgrowth thing, because there are a lot of paths into the natural and into the 3rd base where you can kind of sneak your Swarm hosts around and get those angles down, and of course very fast. You can get them over there in time, so was pretty cool. We are going to jump into an interview eventually here with Dark.
That's right. Be running him over to the interview zone in a moment to hear his thoughts going into the next series. So the Zerg hope survives. The fan favorite here in the crowd wins, and Deer will yet again disappoint in another round of 4. Now 4 of 5 he has made in Star Leagues here in Korea. He has failed to grow to the grand finals. Made it as far as he could in SSL, had a very impressive season coming up from the promotions. Well, that is going to be the end of our series, of course, and what a series it was. The first of 3 we will have to end out the season.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with you. It was a bit disappointing, especially with Deer's very strong beginning, but he was always the underdog coming in here against Dark. He was looking strong in the regular season, but this is kind of the expected result. Props to Deer for actually putting up a bit of a fight, especially in the beginning. You guys can see the almost reverse sweep as Dark only let him take 2 games.
Yeah. Very calculated series from Dark, and you have to feel for Deer, love him or hate him, and the style that he showed us throughout this tournament in the PvZ matchup, his cheeses, his Proxy Dark Shrine against Bjol. He played some of the best StarCraft he's played in years. Not going to have that second title here in Korea, but we'll see him maybe next season as Dark moves on. I think we are going to jump to that interview actually in just a moment. Here it is. We have replays as well, guys, I believe, to show you guys. We're going to go into those games a little bit more in-depth, old Pro League style.
First off, congrats. Deer was in great form for the early part of the series. How did you feel when you were down 0-2? There are a couple of builds that I prepared, but it seemed like Deer's preparation was a direct counter to what I had prepared. So for after that, I just changed it up. I went with my gut, and it really worked out. You talked about preparation. Were Swarm hosts part of that preparation? He said, I didn't really intend to use Swarm hosts completely, but it very much depends on the map. Whirlwind, I get very intimidated by that map personally, so I tend to go for a lot of all-ins.
본인이 생각하기에 어떤 경기가 6경기 중에 어떤 경기가 제일 좀
So in your personal opinion, which game tonight was the most memorable?
3세트까지 좀 예언자가 너무 세가지고
He says he didn't really feel like he was having a lot of fun. He felt very flabbergasted, especially in response to the oracles. They were kind of just making him laugh because oracles are so straightforward. They just fly into me and kill all my stuff. You have a lot of Pro Toss players to go through. You got Classic and Stats. Over at the GSL, there's Innovation and then another Pro Toss player if he makes it through. So, are you worried about your ZVP at all? Dark says he was actually most nervous about Deer. So now that he's gotten through him, he feels like the big challenge is pretty much over.
So now we're going to take a look at some of these replays. Talk about the Ling counterattack here. So you decided to counter the Oracles with Mass Zerglings in this particular set. In Game 3, we're talking about here. So what was the focus with the Zerglings you're trying to accomplish with these? Hope we get to talk about that Psystorm. So I've been using a lot of Hydras, you know, and it hasn't been working out so well for me against Deer style, so I thought going a more mobile army composition with Lings was the better way. Also, Deer canceled his Psystorm in this game. Did you know that? Why would he have done that? Dark says, honestly, I was pushing him really hard because I wanted to actually end the game before Storm. So it makes me happy that his Storm was cancelled, because he knew that Storm would be the end of his composition here. So talking about this fight specifically, so Dark says the fight before this one was actually the most important one, because he thought he might have had enough Oracles to defend it. So moving on to the next set, talking about Game 4 now, definitely going to be talking about this Cybernetics core. So again, Zerglings came up big for Dark in this game. So he lost Adepts trying to harass my workers. So if I set my Lings, I thought I might be able to break through, find some damage, because the Adepts would not be at home. So speeding it up here, take a look at the core. So basically Dark says, of course you got to break the core down when it's low like that. Similarly, again, knowing there weren't Adepts at home, took the opportunity to take the core down. And now he's suddenly changing topics. Any tips on defending Mass Oracle? He said, honestly, I have no idea. Feels like, that's weird. That's weird. Anyways, he said he feels like Oracles break the law of StarCraft. I guess the replay is broken for the walking animation for these, so I guess they're going to be little ice skating. So the Korean commentator is talking about Nidus Worm play, potentially. Did you intend to go Swarm Host from the very beginning? Or was it more of a on-the-fly decision? I did consider the potential Nidus Worm, but I felt like the Swarm Hosts were a little bit less predictable. Just like this animation. No one would have ever predicted this. So when did you feel like you did enough damage with the Swarm Hosts?
네, 알겠습니다.
He felt like he won as soon as he saw the disruptors. Felt like the disruptors were going to be very weak against the Swarm hosts. Kind of leading into what you and I were saying. Just an unfortunate tech that he chose there. So finally, any words to Classic, he will face next week. Feels like I don't need to say anything. After watching him play, Classic should be afraid. My play speaks for itself. And then he says, I'm going to win this season, and I'll buy you something nice to eat with my prize money. So a little bit of polite trash talk there to close out the interview.
And by the way, guys, if you want to go ahead and check out that interview in English, they are always uploaded on the global YouTube channel for us. I think it's about 24 hours after the interview actually happens. So
there goes Engine.
Whoa. He flew by. Made it back in time.
Yeah, they will be uploaded. It's going to be better translations than our kind of on-the-fly live translations. It's very difficult to do. Really interpretation more than translation there.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. You got to make sure you get it right.
Yeah.
Some people might get angry.
That's right. Some people might be upset if you said it the other way.
But yeah, I think that YouTube is Esports TV.
Where you can find all the VODs.
Global. So there you go, guys. And next Monday, on September 11th, funnily enough, it is going to be Classic versus Dark, going head-to-head.
That's right, and then the winner of that will move on to the Grand Finals. We'll take a week break, and then we'll head to the Finals on Sunday, the 24th. It'll be at 2 p.m., so a very early Finals there with stats against the winner of the semifinals. So should be a good one either way. I know a lot of people want that Stats Dark rematch of the 2016 Season 1 SSL Finals.
I mean, we could have it here in SSL, and we could also have it at GSL.
That's right.
Because I think Stats is going to defeat SOS, and I think that Dark, I don't know, it's going to be close between him and Innovation for sure.
Yeah, definitely will be a close one. Challenge, of course, will be Rogue, Byun, Sue Bunny, Impact, and Jokchi. This will be on Saturday at 10 p.m. No audience, of course, here, so you can't watch it live. But, of course, we'll be having later on the promotion tournament, the Fast Lane, where you can come down and watch live and see who's going to be in next season, who advances from that Fast Lane. Been a great semis, you know. I really did not know how well Deer was going to do. It came in strong, won the first game as we thought was important, but I will step back and say my 4-2 prediction came exactly correct.
You're right. It seemed like Deer had enough of these well-prepared builds to actually take out Dark, and Dark, even saying it in his interview, he feels like Oracles break the law of StarCraft. So it seems like even Dark, who was able to take 4 games in a row against a strong guy like Deer, is still having trouble with that Oracle style. We'll see if some of the other Protoss players that Dark is going to have to face will use that style. I have no doubt at all that it will at least come out in a couple of games in those matchups.
It's really exciting, too, that Classic's playstyle is basically the opposite of Deer. He's very much passive. He wants to get his third, his base as quickly as possible, his fourth as quickly as possible without even touching the Zerg. So totally different playstyle going into that series next week. So very excited to see how that one's going to pan out.
Yeah, so that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you once again for joining us for Dark versus Deer. We will see you on Monday for more SSL Premier Playoffs. Good night.